Howdy, welcome to FishTales. Let me tell you a little story about a creek I fish over at Lake Somerville. It's also a little history lesson. On this south side of Lake Somerville, between Yaywall Creek Park and Rocky Creek Park, going down 1948, FM 1948, you'll cross over a little creek there. That's Jardell Creek. I have been fishing that thing since about the year 2000, and in those 12 years I have seen it go through a bunch of changes, with it flooding and then drought and then flood and then drought. It makes every year different than the year before. There's an amazing amount of sand that comes down that creek every time it floods, and it does a pretty good job of reshaping itself. There'll be pools where there used to be shallows and shallows where there used to be pools. In the better years, when the lake comes up high enough, it'll push a lot of water back up into that creek, almost to the headwaters. And in those years, the fishing's very good. The fish will come up into the creek and stay there most of the summer. It's got a lot of black bass in it. And in the springtime, if you get enough rain, you'll have white bass, hybrids, and crappie up there, catfish, gar, and carp. This creek has a unique geological feature. At the headwaters where two creeks come together to form Jardell, there's a big sandstone ridge. That ridge runs all the way down the south side of the lake. You can see it at the dam. That ridge forms a barrier. That's as far as the fish can go up in that creek. There's a big pool above it, and there's some fish in that, but from that point downstream all the way to the lake, it's only about a mile. I can't tell you how many times I've fished this creek, especially when everybody else is up in the Yaywall or at Nails Creek fishing for white bass or crappie. I don't like crowds much, so I'll head up in this little creek. It's also a good bit more open and a little bit more friendly to fly fishermen, which is what I do up in there most of the time. The fish generally aren't big, but there's a good variety. You've got freshwater drum, you got the buffalo, carp, white bass, catfish. Occasionally I catch a catfish out there. But in the springtime, it's white bass. And crappie if you can find them. I have a few times. Looking back over the last few years, I've been up in there and done really well and come back a week later and do sorry. But that's the nature of the beast. This creek is so short, and most of the time it's not running. Hasn't been running for the last year or so because of the drought. But it's a very interesting place to go. I like going up there and just sitting at the headwaters and listening to the rapids. You call it that. Water's clean and clear. That creek clears up faster than any other one on Somerville because it's mostly sand. And occasionally in the spring, the black bass come in there and they'll spawn along the banks. And that makes for some easy pickings with a fly rod. Even though I'm by myself most of the time when I go up into that creek, you never know what you're going to find. And it is a good place to take friends and family. 2009 was a particularly good year. What had happened is the lake was about 2 or 3 feet low, and it had disconnected from the creek. But a 10-inch rain fell in April, early April. And it flooded the creek, reconnected it to the lake, and a whole lot of fish moved up into the creek, including a bunch of spawning largemouth. That was probably the biggest bass I'd caught out of Jardell Creek, and I caught 3 of them, about 6 or 7 pounds each. If you went further up the creek, you could see all the sand that had come down. It totally changed that creek. 2009 started out where the lake was about 2 feet low. That rain in April brought it up to normal pool level, but then it began to go down again, as it always does. And what happened is it disconnected again and trapped all these fish up in the creek. Well, in May, I went a little further up the creek throwing a fly, and I found out that there was a bunch of hybrid stripers in there. And they were easy pickings with a fly rod. It was a unique opportunity. And we took advantage of it. For the next 2 months, my nephew, my brother, Friends of mine, anybody I knew, I took up in that creek to catch these fish. It was a ball. What I didn't know then was those fish were doomed. It didn't rain again, so the creek kept getting smaller and smaller. It quit flowing, and the summer sun cooked them. They all died. Since that time in 2009, the lake has suffered again and again from drought. This most recent one, 2011, put the lake at a record low level of 10 feet below pool. We've gotten a little rain recently, and things are looking better, but we got a long way to go. And it might be a while before there's any more fish in Jardell Creek. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Y'all be good. Thanks for watching. Bye.